Hey everybody, we're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered as always by STN Sports. Jason, I'm Chucky, sitting in the Red Rock Racing Sportsbook, and there's a lot going on in the world of sports right now, but we're both kind of draft nicks, and it's draft week, and there's a lot of uncertainty like there always is. I mean, for us, I think it's the best soap opera in sports. For our side of the counter, we don't always do really well on these props. We're in an information era, and you guys are getting a lot of the information as we're getting it. We know some places don't always put these up. We like to put some draft props up, though, because it's such a focal point of what's going on in the industry right now that we have them on the board, and we have to move them really quick, and there's information out there. But I think it's fun to kind of dive into these and kind of look at positions of strength, weakness, kind of the quarterback class, and then doing our mock top 10 each as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs.
What are those?
Baseball's underway, but there's just something about the NFL and the NFL draft, and we leave that excitement of Super Bowl, and as we start to turn towards what is August and September, and in mid-May we'll get that first week schedule. But it's exciting to see what your team is doing, where it feels it needs improvements, and then obviously taking these all-stars, all-Americans from college, and anticipating what they're going to look like in the NFL and how they fit into each team's plans and the holes the teams have and who's going to make trades. There's just so much that's going to go on Thursday night and Friday, and it's just an exciting part of what the NFL is and what we're going to be doing as we look forward to September.
We're kind of sickos, and we'll be watching together on Thursday night, kind of watching it and kind of going through it with Jason and Bert and just kind of having some fun as well. But I think when you look at the draft this year, and it's such a quarterback-driven league, we all know. We saw the 6 guys go last year in the first round. You saw Penix go a little bit earlier. You saw Bo Nix go a little bit earlier. It looks like the consensus number 1 pick is Cam Ward. Like, that's going to be it for the Titans. They're not interested in trading out of that pick. At number 2 and 3, 2 teams that need a quarterback, but everything we're hearing now is their phone lines are open. If somebody wants to kind of come up there, but it's not for a quarterback. I don't think the Browns at 2 or the Giants at 3 grab a quarterback, but you have other kind of polarizing guys. And when you look at the strength of the draft this year, very uncharacteristically, maybe somewhat of a forgotten position is running back. And I think there's a lot of strength at running back. You have Genty from Boise. You've got the 2 guys from Ohio State in Judkins and Henderson. You've got Johnson from Iowa, Hampton from North Carolina, and then Scadaboo from Arizona State, who looked so good in the college football playoffs. So those are just to name a few, but I think there's some strength there, some strength on the O-line, some strength on the D-line as far as edge goes as well. But I think after the top 3, and we'll get into our mocks, but Ward, Hunter, and Carter, after that, I think there's a lot of interchangeable pieces from maybe 4 to 24, which is going to make this year's draft, I think, really interesting.
Well, you talk about just last year, you talk about quarterbacks and the amount of quarterbacks we saw in the first round, and really wide receiver was the other position last year that saw a lot of depth, and we saw superstars, guys that had integral parts of their rookie season and maybe able to make big marks on that rookie season and good for their team. From a quarterback standpoint, maybe we see 3, maybe 4 go in the first round. Running backs you bring up, obviously Genty's going to be in the top 10. We might see 2 other guys get drafted in the first round. You brought up offensive linemen, specifically the tackle position. I think that we see probably 3 of those guys in the top 12 between Campbell, Membu, and I think that Banks Jr. probably is somewhere in that 12. So a real strength there in this draft in the top 12. But for me, the strength of this draft, and it seems to be a growing position, and it was linebackers or defensive end. I know we call it edge now, but I think there's like 7 edge guys that are ranked in the top 28 of the players in this draft. So again, getting after that quarterback, pressuring that quarterback, become a vital part of today's NFL, and I think this draft does have some strength at that edge position. We'll see those 7 guys go in this first round.
I think what's interesting, too, is you've got, the success of the Raiders last year drafting Brock Bowers, that you've got both Warren and Loveland, who are 2 guys that could potentially go in the top 15 as well. You've heard a lot of rumblings of maybe Warren going 7 overall to the Jets, maybe 10 to the Bears. Loveland, wouldn't Jim Harbaugh love to have his tight end from Michigan actually drop to the Chargers as well? So I think that tight end position now, too, with those 2 guys is going to be really interesting. But as we sit right now, no trades within the first round. So I think because there's so much kind of parity after that initial push, that even if the Giants, the Saints, and the Browns don't take a quarterback with their first pick, it's not going to stun me if 1, 2, or all 3 of those teams somehow tried to trade back into the first round if Sanders drops, if Dart drops, if Milroe's still there. And they're talking about Milroe being the best running quarterback ever, even better than Lamar Jackson. He's got the size, the big arm, but how does that game translate to the NFL? And then the quarterback from Louisville, Shiloh, who's 26 years old, he could come in and maybe start now. Bo Nix was 24, he's a little bit older, but he's got that big arm. He could help teams as well. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty, but I do think you're going to have a bevy of trades as some of these teams that don't take a quarterback early are going to want to shoot back into that first round because you have that 5th-year option on those guys.
Yeah, now that's the key, is getting that 1 year of bonus if you take that quarterback in the first round. So somewhere in that 26 to 32 at the back end of the first round, if these quarterbacks are still hanging around, there's a big advantage play to go in there and pick them up at that time.
Well, I know we've talked about it and we've teased it for a couple of weeks. Let's go ahead and dive into our top 10 mock. We can kind of go back and forth. I'm guessing there's going to be some real similarities here.
We have not discussed this in advance.
Very strange.
No idea what Chucky's going to say here. So we could have the exact same top 10, but it'll be fun for Thursday to see how it actually plays out.
And I do think that if you listen to all the draft experts, that it seems very chalky. But it's not going to be. There's going to be some trades. There's going to be a hiccup. There always is, where somebody kind of throws that monkey wrench into the draft, and it's so different. And we've got, for our draft props, we have how many trades there'll be that affect the first round on that day. Mr. Irrelevant, what position that will be, and of course Brock Purdy a few years ago at quarterback. And then I think we have like 26 teams up where we have an index of who the player will be, and that's a work in progress because we're in such an information era that changes all the time right now. Saints, it seemed like we're all in on a quarterback. Now they're not so much. Raiders were all in on Genty, and that's the rumblings right now. I still think it's O-line, but we'll see, and that's what makes this exercise fun. So let's go ahead and dive in. I think no surprise with number 1 pick. I think both Jay and I feel kind of the same way. Titans number 1, I think it's going to be Cam Ward, quarterback. I just don't see anything different right now. They're not interested in trading the pick. Will Levis didn't work out there. They've got a new coaching staff there and GM. I think it's clearly going to be Cam Ward.
Yeah, I don't think there's any surprise. Cam Ward, number 1, Titans. Enjoy the rookie quarterback, and we'll see the growing pains throughout the season. I think just about 99. If we were filling out brackets right now, 99% of the world would have Cam Ward number 1 to the Titans.
I think the first 3 or 4 are going to be very, very close, but the second pick now is the Cleveland Browns. We know their quarterback situation. They went out and traded for Kenny Pickett. They signed Joe Flacco. They definitely need some help there. I don't think Watson's going to ever suit up for the Browns again. But I think it's going to be Travis Hunter. You get a guy that many people think is the best player in the draft, can play both ways. He's actually asked the commissioner to introduce him as a corner and wideout, which I think he contributed in both. But I think it's going to be Travis Hunter, corner wideout out of Colorado, going to the Browns.
I think it's a completely different guy. It's Travis Hunter, wide receiver, cornerback, because that's how the Browns envision using him. They want to use him on the offensive side for more plays, sprinkle him in on defense. I think he should be used the other way around, where he's a full-time defender and 15 to 20 plays on offense. We'll see how the Browns use him. Players kind of go to Cleveland and go there to struggle. So hopefully this is a reverse of course for Travis Hunter. Wishing him all the best. But Cleveland has not been a thoroughbred for guys that get picked by the Cleveland Browns.
So we are 2 for 2 so far. So number 3, this is where it might get interesting a bit, because I think the consensus 3rd pick is Abdul Carter, the edge from Penn State. We saw the success that Micah Parsons had. But it's a Giant team that has strength in Burns, who they traded for last year from Carolina, and Thibodeau, who they drafted early last year. So it's not really a need for them. I know that a lot of GMs and coaches really, practice, best available player, and that would be Carter. You can make a case that he could go number 1. It's not going to stun me if a team tries to get up to number 3 and maybe grab Carter. But as of right now, for this exercise, Abdul Carter, edge from Penn State, goes to the Giants.
I agree. Again, he's the top rated player in the draft. When you look at everybody's kind of ratings, just doesn't fit for 1 and 2 with Tennessee and Cleveland. But I think the Giants scoop them up here. I'll agree with you, and Abdul Carter out of Penn State goes to the New York Giants.
3 for 3. So if you're betting the exact order now, you know you have locks. You can go ahead and bet this. Number 4, again, I think it gets a little interesting here. Patriots have a new coach, of course. They have Drake May at quarterback, who's their quarterback of the future. They lack a little bit in skill position, but for me, they need to protect Drake May. I think it's Will Campbell, offensive lineman, who initially is listed as a tackle. I think he can kind of bump inside to play guard as well. This guy had a phenomenal collegiate career. I know there's that issue about arms, but if you watch this kid and how good he is and how dominant he's been and the conference he played in, for me, which is really the key, I think it's Will Campbell, number 4 to the Patriots.
Yeah, and again, the Patriots need so many positions, so this is where you say it could go, so many different directions. But I agree with you. Will Campbell, tackle out of LSU. I think that the Patriots covered him, and again, saw Drake May. You got to protect your franchise. That's what they need to do here. So I'm going to agree with you. Will Campbell 4 to the Patriots.
Now I wish I could duplicate that kind of music that plays when there's a trade. But I can't, so I'm not musically inclined. But this is where I think it gets really interesting. The Jags at 5. They were all in on kind of Mason Graham getting that kind of wrecker, the next Aaron Donald in the middle of that defense. They have a new coaching staff as well. For me, they have skill position players. They've got a 2-headed monster at running back. You've got Brian Thomas. You've got a young tight end. And, of course, you have Trevor Lawrence. I think Graham's the guy. But they've now put it out there that, hey, maybe Genty's the guy, the running back out of Boise that so many teams seem to covet. I think it's a prime spot for a team to trade up at number 5, and maybe that's Chicago, maybe it's Dallas or Denver that all want to get ahead of the Raiders and grab Genty. But with no trade, I'm going with Jacksonville to take Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan.
Yeah, and as we get here to the 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock hour, I was dead set on Mason Graham. I didn't think the Jaguars went another way here, but there are lots of rumblings that they covet Genty, the Boise State,
coming up from
the
behind
running back, which is a surprise. ETN there, Tank Bigsby there, and obviously, they have to be able to stop the run. I'm going to agree with you. I think that this could be Genty, but from a standpoint of going where they should go, Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. I think he's the 3rd rated player in the draft. I think he's a better fit for the Jaguars. I don't think they need a Genty as they sit right now. I think this is the more important player to the overall fit of what the organization needs to do. So Mason Graham to Jacksonville at 5 for me.
So we're 5 for 5 so far. And I think that spot, though, what makes it interesting is that by the Jags putting it out there, you could have a team that will trade up to that 5 spot if they really covered Genty, or if somehow Carter was to drop, if you did get a second quarterback like Sanders to go to the Giants, say. But I think this is what the Jags are saying is we're open for business, and I could see that happening. The 6th pick now is where it gets really interesting, and that's our Las Vegas Raiders. It's been Genty. Their new GM has said, I love running backs to my core. I think if I could have a smoke maker right here, I would have it bellowing out right now, because I think it's a smoke screen. I think we've talked about this part of it, not necessarily our mock, but when you draft a running back or you go out and get a running back like the Eagles did with Barkley or the Ravens did with Henry, it's that missing piece. You don't want to have a running back that needs to carry the ball, 500 times a season because you lack in other areas. And I think that's kind of where the Raiders are right now. I know you have Bowers. I know you have Myers. I think they need a wide receiver bad. I think they're a candidate to trade back as well if somebody really covers Genty. But for me, it's going to be Tate McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, going to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into it. I could see him going Membu as well, offensive lineman from Missouri, but I just don't think it's Genty. I think it's a huge smokescreen.
No smoke screen here. Hand him the ball 500 times. Welcome to Las Vegas, Ashton Genty. Boise running back for the Raiders for me.
All right, so a little bit different there. The next team up is the Jets, and I think the Jets, they're a team that's kind of in transition a bit too. New coach there. They've got some skill position players. They really need a tight end, as their tight end is left Conklin and signed with the Chargers. I think it's either Membu, the offensive lineman, to protect Justin Fields, or they go Ty Warren, the tight end from Penn State. I think it's one of those two guys.
Yeah, you don't get to pick two guys. You're on the clock.
All right,
I
am leaning towards Membu then, the offensive lineman from Missouri.
Justin Fields steps in, whether he's the quarterback of the future or the quarterback of right now for the New York Jets. They have to be able to protect him. Weren't able to do that with Rodgers last year at all. Arnaud Membu, offensive tackle out of Missouri, absolutely the pick here for the Jets. I agree that they have a lot of needs, but again, when you're able to get a top 10 offensive lineman, a guy of this quality, I don't think you can pass him up. I'm taking Membu here for the Jets out of Missouri with the number 7 pick.
All right, so we've been fairly close. I think the one big difference was McMillan and Genty for the Raiders. Number 8 now, the Carolina Panthers. They traded Burns away to the Giants a couple of years ago. I think they're desperately looking for somebody to get after the quarterback. I like some of their skill position players. Young really seemed to play well after his benching last year, and then during the second half of the season, I think it's Jalen Walker, the edge from Georgia. Yes, the edge / linebacker from Georgia, I think goes to the Panthers at number 8.
Yeah, I think they're on the edge as well. I was looking at Green out of Marshall. I think that he is a guy that maybe has a little bit more talent than Jalen Walker, but I agree with you. I think Carolina stays with Jalen Walker here, linebacker out of Georgia. Not only the edge, but the linebacker. He's a guy that they're going to have some creative use for. He's just a all-around defensive type player. I think fits into that Carolina system. So I agree with you. Jalen Walker, linebacker from Georgia, to the Carolina Panthers at 8.
So the next team up is the Saints at 9, and I think they're very interesting as well. We know there's a chance now that Carr might miss the season. So what do they do? Do they actually go out and get a quarterback or not? I think it's either, I know I'm going to say 2 guys, but I will pick one. It's either going to be Sanders. I know they said they're probably not going quarterback. I know they've talked about Genty as you look at that they need some help maybe at running back. How long can they keep giving the ball to number 41? And then offensive line. So it's either going to be Sanders, running back, or offensive line. I'm going to go with Sanders, though. I think that they haven't taken a first-round quarterback since they took Archie Manning from Ole Miss. I think it's going to be Sanders, though, at number 9. For me, I could see Banks, but I think it's going to be Sanders.
I'm going to throw my first trade music comes on here. I think Shedeur Sanders is the pick here at 9, but it's not to the New Orleans Saints. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers move up to the 9 spot, draft Shedeur Sanders here. New Orleans moves back to, I think, the Steelers' 21st pick, and I'll make a pick there that they take Jackson Dart at 21, the Saints. So I think the Steelers move up to 9 to secure Sanders, and the Saints move back to 21, and they take Jackson Dart.
If Jason is right, which he very well may be, that'll be twice in the Saints' history that they have taken a quarterback number 1. And this will be a Trivial Pursuit question if that game still exists years from now, is that both times they did that, the quarterback was from Ole Miss. That would have been Archie Manning and Jackson Dart. So I don't know how things work out like that, but they do. So the next team is our Bears. And I think they're in an interesting position because they also have 2 picks in the second round and a pick in the third. They have 4 picks in the top 75. I thought they did a really good job in the offseason of addressing that offensive line, getting the edge, locking down some of the key players they needed to. So I think they can do whatever they want. And there's been rumblings about them moving up for Genty, about them possibly taking Hampton, the running back from North Carolina, the tight end Warren from Penn State. If Membu drops, Banks drops. I'm going to go with Ty Warren, though, the tight end from Penn State. I think he just gives Ben Johnson that in those 12 packages, he gives them another weapon. This is the last year of Cole Kmet's contract. I think he's an intriguing guy that can help a young quarterback and Caleb Williams. I'm going to go Warren, tight end out of Penn State to the Bears.
Yeah, and you talked about Warren potentially going 7 to the Jets. And he's, I think, the 4th-rated player overall in this draft. I think the Bears, this is a spot that's an absolute need for them. You talked about Cole Kmet. I think that they had 583 yards out of the tight end position last year. You know that Ben Johnson offense wants to include that tight end. We saw him do that in Detroit. I think this is a great pick for them. Tyler Warren, Penn State tight end of the Bears at number 10.
I think, too, that I wouldn't completely rule out Colston Loveland from Michigan at tight end either. He's actually a bigger body. He's more your prototypical tight end, where I think Warren can line up in a number of different places. Played quarterback at high school. He can be the guy in the backfield on third or fourth and goal. He can be that fourth down back many times, but I think it'll be Warren. But, we did the top 10. We're not going to do the entire mock, but I really think when you look at teams like the Giants, the Browns, the Saints, and the Steelers, that when you look at the trades, that as the draft kind of unfolds, and there's so much parity, I think, from 5 to like 25 or to the end of the draft, that because of that fifth year that we alluded to earlier, you're going to have teams want to bounce back up to grab one of these guys. And I think that's going to happen. So I still think you're going to see 3, maybe a 4th guy go in the first round, but I don't think Sanders or Dart gets out of the first round, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, check out the app. There's a tab there that says NFL Draft. All the teams, not all the teams, but potentially 20 of the teams in that first round. We've got the position that they'll draft with their first round pick. So a lot of fun there. A lot of big odds, some 40, 50, 60 to 1s on certain positions for certain teams. And obviously, as the draft goes on, somebody steals somebody's pick, and now a position that wasn't expected to be drafted by that team ends up getting drafted by that team. So we always find ourselves with some big paydays here, or big potential paydays within these draft props. And again, draft 5 o'clock on Thursday. Then all those draft props are going to shut off. So make sure you get on the app today and check out all the NFL draft props on the app.
I think one of the questions that came in is what position maybe isn't getting the respect it deserves. And I think it's running back this year. I do think that you see 2 for sure go in the top 10 to 12. I think there's a real chance that Hampton does not get past maybe Chicago or Dallas if he's still there. But I think you look at Johnson and Henderson and Judkins, I think one of them maybe finds their way back into the tail end of the first round as well. And we saw the success that the Lions had with Gibbs and Montgomery. We saw Barkley last year for the Eagles and Henry for the Ravens. Teams are getting back into running the ball. So I think you're going to see more running backs go in the top 2 rounds than maybe we've seen in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, cornerback was one of the positions, obviously, with these high-flying wide receivers and offenses throwing the football around. We normally see the quarterback/safety position coveted in the drafts. Not a lot of big-time
Will
corners.
Johnson from Michigan really is, I think, that guy.
Yeah, and obviously
that could go.
Travis Hunter, with all due respect, going with the number 2 pick as we expect, being that cornerback. But again, when you've got 4 and a lot of times 5 of those guys on the field at one time, it's important to have some good corners, and so this draft a little bit weak from a cornerback standpoint.
Right. Again, I think there's so much parity in this draft. That's why I think the trade prop is going to be really interesting. We're going to switch gears right now, and as Jay alluded to earlier, I mean, we're in the middle of just getting started with the NBA and NHL playoffs, so it's really kind of interesting, from our side, looking at some of the teams that were so dominant in the NBA this year. You look at the Cavs and the Celtics in the East, and then you look at OKC out West. I mean, just dominated against the number this year. 4-0 during the year against the Grizzlies. Lakers lost their first playoff game to the T-Wolves. So are we going to get any surprises as we move through, or is it going to be really chalky? But there's a lot of kind of cool stuff going on in the NBA right now.
Yeah, and the big favorites were able to get there. You talked about Oklahoma City, Boston, and the Cavaliers, all 13.5 to 14-point favorites in their opening game, and all got there early.
Right.
Oklahoma City winning by 50-plus over Memphis. So we'll see if these underdogs can rebound. For me, I fully expect we're going to see a Thunder Celtics NBA final. Hopefully we can have some other teams that maybe get involved there, but this is really, again, the haves versus the have-nots, the pinnacle of the NBA, the best teams in the NBA versus these 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds that are playing in these play-in games. The matchups just aren't there. When we start to see where the upsets can get pulled, you talked about the Timberwolves. Again, the Timberwolves are a high-quality team. Obviously, the Lakers with the star power and the fact that Doncic
Edwards
coming
has to
in.
play a perfect series.
Well, it wasn't even Edwards that played great.
No.
It was the Naz Reid
and the threes
and the other guys that came out of there to upset that game. But I expect the cream of the crop to rise to the top, and we're going to see the Thunder Celtics, which should be an absolutely incredible NBA final, because I think these two teams are on a collision course. And you could make the same kind of argument as you look at the NHL playoffs that we look at, that the top teams have become such big favorites in both the East and the West, and that the teams aren't matching up. Obviously, Winnipeg already takes a 2-0 lead over what was the hottest team coming into the
Very
playoffs.
close
the St.
games
Louis
in those
Blues.
2 games,
The Knights, with the big win over the Wild. We saw the Kings have a big lead, and
Wait
the
a second.
Oilers
I
come back.
I need a second to talk about the Knights.
Not even
Just
a second. A point
0.01,
of a second.
right.
And a lot of you know exactly what we're talking about because you cashed a lot of puck line and a lot of over tickets with that empty net goal there right at the end. But again, the Avalanche.
We were texting and didn't sleep well that night.
Dallas really struggled down the stretch. Avalanche are a pretty heavy favorite over them. Dallas able to go in there and actually steal Game 2 as a dog. And the favorites on the east side of the bracket completely cleaned the clocks of the dogs that first round. And so we saw a lot of favorites winning, and we saw a lot of puck lines getting covered in these first matchups in the NHL playoffs. So hopefully from a sportsbook standpoint, we can see these dogs win a couple games. I'm desperate for the Minnesota Wild to win a game or cover up puck line here. Obviously,
very late game, tonight too.
Looking at the Knights and expecting a Stanley Cup run here. They've got the team to do it. They've got the fan base to do it. The stadium was the arena, T-Mobile, was absolutely electric in an opening game against the Wild, and that's what this team's going to need to make this push. Obviously, the Oilers-Kings will be the matchup moving forward, and then you're going to get Avalanche or Jets in a West Coast final, and then who knows what we get coming out of the East. But the Knights are set up for a prime run here.
You do know the Stars are going to show up, though, for Game 3.
I hope so, because, again, the Avalanche are going to be a big favorite at home. They're starting to get some players back, starting to play some better hockey.
Their captain are getting Landeskog back.
It was good to see the Stars steal the game, but, again, I think we're on a collision course here, and we're looking for, from a sportsbook standpoint, we're cheering for the Knights as Las
fans.
Vegas fans, but from a sportsbook standpoint, we need they can advance. We just need them to stop advancing 4-0 and 4-1 and 4-2. We need some electric Game 7s.
Love,
and have some fun in some Game 7s.
I think what makes it interesting, too, this year is that I think it is a little bit open. I think in the Jets' case, if you've got the goaltender and Hollebach, that they can definitely stand on his head and win a series. I think you look at that Kings-Oilers series, and I think the Kings are really good. I think they're kind of sleepy good and can play well against the Knights. They had a 4-0 lead in Game 1. Oilers came roaring back with McDavid, but kind of the same old bugaboo for the Oilers. It's goaltending again. They give up 6 goals last night. And I think you look at the East right now, Toronto doesn't have Boston to have to contend with this year. So do you get a Canadian team in it this year? It's been a long time since a Canadian team won it. And really, I think you look at Toronto and Winnipeg, there's always that chance you could get both those teams. I think you're going to get a surprise team from one of the two conferences, but I think Toronto is kind of sneaky good in the East right now, in my opinion.
Well, a great matchup tonight between Toronto and Florida, and obviously Florida's been represented in that Stanley Cup final. And I think we're dismissing. I called for the first round upset. I was hoping the Habs, the Canadians, could knock off the Capitals. That the Capitals had such this 3 weeks of Ovechkin going after the goal streak, that maybe that wore the team out, and that the Habs could come in here and maybe steal a series. And of course, Ovechkin's got to score the game winner in overtime.
His first ever game winner in overtime.
Never done before. The announcers, less than 8 seconds after they said it, Ovechkin puts the biscuit in the back of the net. But again, looking for maybe the Capitals to be that surprise team in this electric season that Ovechkin has had for them. Maybe the Capitals can find their way. But I still think the Carolina Hurricane are going to have something to say in the East. I think that, again, of all the wide openness, Carolina's constantly been there in the regular season and then falters in the playoffs and isn't able to get through. I think this may be the year that the Hurricane can find a way to scratch.
Maybe between the two of us, we're right on one of the teams in the East. I think that's what makes it so great right now, is that it is a little bit wide open in the NHL.
But again, when you get on the app, look at the NHL. There's that big plus number at the bottom right-hand corner. That's how many props are available on these games. So whether it's an NHL game or an NBA playoff game, that number in the corner is like 300, 350. We are offering so many player props, so many different ways to bet these games. Got to check it out. Get on the STN Sports app today. Look at all the props that we're offering throughout the playoffs, both NBA and NHL.
And we really didn't touch on it all, though. We're, a few weeks into baseball right now, so you're starting to see some trends there of teams that are playing good and teams that are playing not so good. You look at the National League West, you've got 4 teams outside of the Rockies who might be the worst team in baseball. Dodgers, Padres, Giants, D-backs, all above 500 now that you guys are doing really well on. So really a tough division. Cubs are off to a good start. Some other teams as well. But check out the app for all this stuff. It's such a great time of year between football, the pro football draft props that we have up, hockey and basketball playoffs, and then, of course, baseball as well.
Yeah, and I mentioned all those props in the playoffs. Same thing on the MLB side of things. That number is going to be plus 300 in these baseball games, whether it's pitcher props, home run props, hits, doubles. If you can think about it, it's going to be in there in that prop menu. All your favorite players, all the guys in the lineup. Check out the Major League Baseball. Look at that number and find all the props available on the baseball games.
And we'll be jumping on with you guys next week to kind of critique the draft and where we're at in the NBA and NHL playoffs. And we'll see if any of these quarterbacks go, what impact they have. If for some reason Aaron Rodgers does ultimately say yes to the Steelers, how that affects their odds and what that would do to them in the draft and where some of these young quarterbacks go. So,
and I'll make one last note. Kentucky Derby, first Saturday in May, as we sit here in late April. STN Sports app. If you've already got it, you're already set up to be able to bet the Kentucky Derby on your app. Just click that racing button. The wallet's the same. You're going to be able to use your sports wallet to bet race. It's all one wallet. So get ready. Start your studying for the Kentucky Derby. That first Saturday in May, you're already set up on the app.
And $10,000 Twin Q on Friday for Oaks Day. $20,000 Twin Q on Saturday Derby Day in the book, and kind of a fun promotion as well, right?
Yeah, we're going to have a t-shirt, free $25 wager here in the properties only. Got to come pick up those t-shirts on Kentucky Derby Saturday.
Really kind of a cool gift, though. So a lot going on right now. Again, as Jason mentioned, check out the app, have fun with all the draft stuff, and we'll be recapping all this stuff next week. So for Jason, I'm Chucky. For the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, again, powered by STN Sports. Have a great week, and we'll see you guys next week.